Hello and welcome to this episode of Can I Be Phished? I'm here today with my good friend Nora Cox. How are you doing today, Nora?
I am very well, thank you, Scott. Glad to be here.
Excellent. I thought it would be great to have Nora on the show today because of her extensive background in security and compliance, as well as a strong interest in security awareness, which is what I love to talk about. After we go through a phishing email, we'll learn more about Nora's background. But before we do that, I would just like Nora to take a minute or two and let us know around her recent background.
Sure. So I don't know if I call it recent, but I have had about 25 plus years in with a focus on security and risk, including 16 years with Entrust, security company Entrust, where you and I met, Scott, as
That's right.
product managers. Yeah.
Long time ago.
Yes. More recently, I would say, with my time at Payments Canada, I had roles in security, in risk, and internal audit, and I was the chief risk officer there at Payments Canada. In my overall career, I guess I would sum it up to say that I like to play the role of interpreter or integrator, as the case may be, as the needs come about, where you try to bring people together from different silos within an organization and help them to work together. So bringing people from IT to understand what's happening with HR and with the line of business, so that your overall solutions become more holistic. So that's kind of where I see my sweet spot, and I do have a lot of fun with that. And it's been very helpful.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I've always loved working with you, and we're going to have a lot of fun in a couple of minutes. I'm going to switch right now to a phishing email. Okay, so this is the fun part of the show that puts a little bit of new knowledge into people's heads so you can explore things that you may not have seen before, but you might well see very soon. We like to analyze individual phishing messages that I've received or that people have sent me. And I'm going to ask Nora to walk along with me as we explore this particular one. This one happens to be apparently from Office 365, telling me that I have a VoIP message, which is an audio message via email. So I'm going to just start by describing the process that I like to use for analyzing an email. There are four steps I call the gut feel garbage check. So we look at this and say, how does this generally look to us? The
Right.
second would be the sender sanity. So we're going to look at the sender, the link elusiveness, and then the body believability. So those are the
That's
four
good.
steps that I like.
That's
It's
good.
lots
I
of
like it.
alliteration there, right? So
Yeah, that's great.
helps to remember these things. Um, so what we're going to look at first is, what do you think of the general look of this email? Now, one thing to note is I haven't actually preloaded images as links. So any images you see here are actually embedded in the email. But often they will put a message or an email an image link into the email. And I usually have images turned off. So if
Mm.
there's a link that will load a remote image, then the reason is it will tell the attacker or the sender if you have a valid email address. If you open up an email and view the messages that are linked to. So in this case, normally we wouldn't see any images, but because they've actually attached one within the email, we do see it. So that's part of our look and feel. So they've done
Okay.
a bit of work to make it look real by putting an image in there, even though
Okay.
it's not linked to anything. So how do you feel when you see this, Nora?
Well, I see Dear S. Wright, period. And
Mm-hmm.
just, they've taken the first part of your email address. Very,
Yeah,
very friendly. They really know who you are. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely a customer.
Yeah. And in general, if we look at this just from a very high level, broad view, it doesn't look too bad. It looks kind of nicely formatted, right? So
That's
I'm
true.
going, it's not just a random bunch of text or a one line thing telling me to do something. And so, they've put a bit of effort into it. So I'd say, for the gut feel part of it, I wouldn't throw it out right away
Hmm.
based on that. So with that in mind, then the next thing I would look at is the sender sanity,
Hmm.
we call it, right? And so in my Mac mail, we find the sender up at the top here. And for the people who are on audio, sometimes people listen to this on an audio and don't see all the video. So I'll try to describe what we're seeing. So the sender name that appears in the email is mail audio delivery underscore app. So supposed to be saying mail audio delivery app, I guess. Um, and so, that may be something that you would recognize, but most people probably don't.
Mm,
So it's the first thing I would say, this is probably not familiar to anybody. It's trying
yeah.
to look generic enough, that it's a mail sending app. Okay, yeah, I'll read it if it's from a mail audio sending app. So
Okay.
that's kind of weird. The assumption that they're making about the fact that people really don't care much about what the sender looks like, and that's what I'm
Mhm.
trying to teach people is let's look at these things and see if they make sense, right?
Yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
just the sender name. Now, what else can we learn about the sender, Nora?
So,
What can we learn about the sender?
well, if you are highlighting over there, it should actually give you the details behind this,
Ah,
the sender's
right.
actual
So
address that they're using.
depending on
Yeah.
the email program you use, you might see it by hovering, or you might have to
Mhm.
click on it. And that's
Oh,
another thing
okay.
that I like to teach people is
Right.
you sometimes have to click on the sender to see where it's coming from. And a lot of people think, oh, don't click on anything in a suspicious email. Well,
Yeah.
certainly links down below, you're not going to click on. But in some cases like this, you're not going to know who the sender email was without clicking on the sender name. So
Right.
on my Mac, when I click on the sender name, it shows me the sender is actually Jim Rozelle at
Hmm.
hotelcompete.com, which sounds a little bit incongruous with
Absolutely.
well, I mean, it might be pretending that it's the actual audio messages from this guy, but
Okay.
still it doesn't match up with the sender name, right? I
No, it
mean, it
doesn't.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's one reason I might throw this out, right? That's the first indicator that's
Yeah.
seriously bad.
So it's
um,
always safe then to click on the sender's
the
email
sender's name,
address.
yep, to
Yeah.
find out the email address.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to do that, but you're right. Sometimes in email clients like Outlook, you can just hover over it, right?
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is what do you do on a tablet or an iPhone or an Android phone, right?
You
How
can't.
do
You have
you?
to click.
You have to click, right? So you're not going to get away from it too easily.
No, that's right.
So anyway, that's the way we look at the sender stuff. So I'm going to say, you know what, I'm not that crazy about the sender information. I'm probably going to
Mhm.
throw it out, but let's just say we don't throw it out at this point. The next would be what I call the linkiveness test. So where would we look for links in this? Well, it looks like there's an email
Mhm.
link in here somewhere, which
Yeah.
actually is my email address, swright at clickarmour.ca. I think that's probably already out there in the world, so I'm not too worried about
But it's
people knowing
showing
it.
mail to Daniel G at junkking.com.
Yeah, that's interesting,
Yeah.
right? So we hover over
Yeah.
the email address, and just that is kind of weird. Why would
Yeah.
it uh, translate or be directing somebody
Right.
to do a mail to somebody completely different, right?
Yeah. Not
Um,
good.
totally not good. And there's a bunch of other, official looking text in this table, Thursday, November 5th, 2020, and then a blanked out caller ID phone number. I don't
Okay.
know why they're bothering to blank it out. I guess so they don't have to put a real one in there that might go somewhere.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, but it just looks kind of official, 29-second duration, status
Too bad about the
delivery.
spelling.
Yeah, the spelling of
Unsuccessful.
successful is wrong.
Yeah.
Successful. So that's not
Yeah.
good.
Always good to look for
Um,
spelling mistakes. Yep.
yep. And then so let's look at the links. So there's a button here that looks like play audio, which points to afclickarmour.ca dot
Hmm.
akuygdisana.com. It's
Yeah.
like okay, so they got ClickArmour in there somewhere. It kind of looks, maybe makes that look official, and if you know domains and the way the internet works, the place where they put clickarmour.ca is called a subdomain, right? So it's
Mhm.
really an important part of the actual address, and so it might help them to track and figure out which message it was that was
Mhm.
sent that I clicked on, but it's not really related to the actual site that we would be going to if we clicked on it. The actual site is this akuygdisana.com, which is totally unknown and weird,
Mhm.
so I'm not going to
Yeah.
go there.
Not good. Nope.
Another link, download audio message,
Same one. Yep.
same domain, actually the
Yeah.
exact same link. And if you can't see or this audio quality was not clear enough, then there's a whole malformed link here that looks like they didn't even get it right. There's a
Yeah,
little,
because it's actually blank. It's got
yeah,
a less than sign and nothing
yeah,
after
it's
it,
got a,
right?
looks like
So,
an HTML tag there that's trying to put
okay.
in an address, but they were not successful at creating a valid address for me to click on.
Okay.
So they, I guess you give them a few points for putting a nice embedded Office 365 logo, but the rest of it
Yeah,
looks
not
pretty
so good.
suspect, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, so the body believability is the last part, right? Just to look at it and say, is the content of what I'm being asked to do meaningful
Right.
and plausible, right? So, it's supposed to be a voicemail message. They're trying to get me to click on something. Well, yeah, maybe they would have, but I'm not expecting this. And
No.
it from all the other clues that I've already seen, I'm not going to click on it. So
No.
that's my
Very good.
analysis for today's message. Just something for people to think about. Those little
Yeah.
elements of an email that you like to look at.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So anyway, that's thanks for helping me go through that. And
All right.
any have you seen any like this before? Or
No, actually not like this where they put the actual buttons in and whatnot. I mean, certainly they have, like you say, gone to a certain level of effort, but the mail audio delivery one is an interesting one. I haven't seen that at all. And to your
so
point, it's that it's safe to click. That's good to know.
Yeah, and it actually, I actually have a voicemail service that is, if you call a certain number, you get a voicemail greeting, and you leave a message, and it emails me the audio of
Okay.
it as an attachment. In this case, they're saying you can download the audio or play the audio or whatever, right? So it's a similar. There are legitimate services that would deliver a message something like this to
Okay.
tell me that I had a voicemail, but I don't use Office 365 to do that. And so
That's a
it's
good clue right there.
good clue. There you go. Yeah. All right. Well, so that wraps up our analysis session of the or segment of the show. So I'd like to just turn back to you, Nora, and
Okay.
in a moment after we take a little commercial break, I'm going to ask you to a few questions about
Okay.
your background.
Sounds good.
If you're like most managers, you're increasingly concerned about employees being targeted with phishing and social engineering attacks that can be very costly. You may have noticed that some static security awareness training programs or phishing assessments just aren't very effective at changing employee behavior. What employees need is a more dynamic and engaging experience that uses proven techniques for accelerating knowledge retention. ClickArmour delivers a better way to engage employees, one that allows them to actually develop and practice real defensive skills in a safe and fun environment. Our gamified phishing and social engineering awareness modules use dynamic learning challenges and simulations to efficiently teach basic skills like analyzing sender information, links, and body content, or learning how to avoid giving information or access to the wrong person. Employees can practice decision-making for risky scenarios in a safe environment and then get immediate feedback and earn points as they compete against their peers. ClickArmour also provides you, the manager, with risk data you've never had before in the form of an employee cyber vulnerability profile. Our flexible, dynamic platform allows for tailoring of any content to your terminology and environment, with monthly challenges available to maintain program momentum. You can try ClickArmour's gamified phishing, social engineering, and working from home modules as a user at no cost. You can also have a free trial organization of your own to see what administrators can do to manage users and content and generate reports. So get started now and learn how you can get immediate results by visiting www.clickarmour.ca/trial. Okay, well, we're back with Nora Cox. I'd just like to go into a little bit of your experience, Nora, with
Sure.
working in teams for compliance and teams responsible for security awareness. Wanted to just get your insights on how important you feel security awareness is within organizations these days.
Well, it's very important. Let's start with that.
Okay.
So, for any organization, small, big, you need to be appropriately aware of what assets you're trying to protect, the importance of those assets and the services that they provide to the achievement of your overall objectives. But it's even more critical for organizations that really have a lot to offer attackers, shall I say, that they're appealing either from a value point of view, rewards, or from a disruption kind of view. So I'm thinking of financial institutions or medical type services, where
Sure.
if you were to modify the data in a patient's file, for example, that could have fatal consequences. So, any organization, you need to understand what it is that you're trying to protect, what level of protection do you need to be putting in place. But it's particularly important for those where, they can be, bad actors are going to be looking for, phishing for credentials, for looking to compromise data in emails or files. And you really want to, from a personal point of view, be very concerned about situations where the attackers might want to take over your identity. It would hurt in business terms as well, but to me, it's very scary to have my personal identity in any way compromised. So,
Yeah, I guess there's quite a linkage now, right, between your personal
yeah,
privacy and data security and the business sometimes.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Especially when you're working from home on the same networks. Yeah,
Yeah, that's I think become a bigger problem these days.
yeah.
So when it comes to governance and risk and compliance, how do you normally look at security awareness when you're in that role?
Okay. Um, so to me, the security awareness is a fundamental component of your overall governance, risk, and compliance program. It's really what I think of as one of the first steps that you need to be taking in terms of identifying and delivering appropriate protection to help the organization meet its objectives, right? Um, so the training, the education, that's really where you're going to help to develop that strong culture of security. You got to help people to understand what are the threats out there? How do I build awareness of the potential risks? Like, you've really got to help people to understand what they need to do and tailor your training to the needs of the organization and the risks that are specific to that organization. So people need to have threats explained to them in a way that it's meaningful for their organization, so that they can then learn, practice, security awareness in a way that's going to help to minimize the breaches for that organization, the phishing, the hacking, the ransomware, et cetera.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I mean, it's that practical knowledge, right? You've got to have the practical knowledge of how to deal with those threats, or else you're just kind of, your gut check is good in some cases, but you need a lot more than that
Yeah.
to back up that gut check.
Yeah, absolutely. So, are there any parts of security awareness program when you think of the delivery of awareness itself that you think are really important or most important?
Yeah, so I would focus in on the who, what, why, and how
Mm,
an organization is vulnerable to attacks. So, who is being attacked? Or, what are the audiences that might be facing attacks? So your C-suite is very typically going to be
right.
attacked. We've seen lots of things like that, but also, your administrators who have more privileges.
Oh,
They
yeah.
are certainly going to be a target for people wanting to get access to more sensitive systems, those more valuable systems, et cetera. But it's also just as important to understand, what types of attacks is
Hmm.
your organization facing, right? Um, what knowing what's important to the success of your business, and understanding the lures and the traps that the attackers might be using to try and compromise your business. That's a really good starting point. But I think, to be real, if you're actually being targeted as an organization, especially if you're, a financial institution with lots of value behind you or in your assets, then, if you're attacked by, say, nation states or some of the more politically advanced type organizations or very well-funded organizations, they're going to get in, right?
Hmm.
So you really have to understand, if my organization were attacked, how would I respond? What are they likely to do? We go back to the who, why, what, and how of the
Hmm.
vulnerability of your organization, put all that together into your training and education, so that you're in a position to say, okay, I need to deliver this relevant training, right,
Yep.
to these right people, and
Yeah.
at the right time, not once a year, but on an ongoing basis, right?
Yeah, I think that's something that we see a lot of, right? It's a once a year, milestone. It's the compliance time of year, right?
Checkbox.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think we find that that's not as effective as
Right.
if you do it more often, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Any thoughts on how you know whether or not your awareness program is working? I'm looking at things like the return on investment. Like, how does a manager know whether or not their
Yeah.
awareness program is actually paying off?
Well, you don't get a blank check?
Oh yeah, I forgot. We could just write a check for everything we
Yes.
need. Yeah.
Well, certainly I've been doing some reading on, ROI models or return on investment models, and it appears to me they can be very, very useful in terms of measuring the benefits of the program. But the calculator is only going to be as good as the data you put in it, right? And so you need to make sure that the return on investment calculators are reflecting your organization, your industry. So you need to put in things like making sure that you capture, say, the phishing emails, the number of phishing emails that come into your organization on a daily basis, or
Hmm.
looking at the number of clicks on the emails and the links,
Right.
the fraudulent clicks, that is.
Yeah.
Looking at the number of security incidents or number of security breaches, as well as the costs associated with both the incidents and the breaches. And to me, they're really, you need to start with a security baseline, and you
Hmm.
need to be tracking on a regular basis. How are we doing compared to where we thought we'd be? How are we doing, in terms of progress against our end state? And it's really the story that you see unfold as you look at the numbers, and you go over time and you say, okay, we're trending in the right direction. Our money is, showing return in that sense. It can really help IT, security, management, and the board to understand whether or not the program is performing based on where it was expected to be. And it's also very good for identifying any adjustments that you might need to make mid-course to get to where you want to be.
Okay. Are there sort of a standard set of metrics that you use, or does every business kind of need to look at different metrics?
Well, I think the standards are, it's going to go back to again, the number of clicks, and starting to see those
Hmm.
clicks, the fraudulent clicks going down
Right.
would be important. Um, I don't think you necessarily can control the number of phishing emails that come up or come
Hmm.
into your organization. I think that's one that you have less control over, but certainly how your people respond to it, that you do have
Right.
control over. So that the more effective your training and education program, you should start to see that return in terms of the numbers going down, as well as the impact side of things, right? The security incidents and the breaches. You
Right.
should be starting to see benefits, trending downward
Yeah, and
in
I
that
guess
area.
you'd like to be able to make some kind of correlation, right,
Yeah,
between what the trend is and really who's been through the training and how well they
yeah.
did on the training, right?
No, it's an excellent point. Yeah. I mean, looking at your audience and understanding the dynamics of who's learning, who's not, and who are the people that maybe need a little extra.
Hmm.
It's there's a point where your accidental falls over into negligence, right? And so it's those who might be a little bit less caring
Right.
when they should be more caring.
Great.
Mm.
One last question for you. So I think
Mhm.
I did invite you to play the ClickArmour
Absolutely.
challenges, and just wondered if you had any thoughts on how it compares to other kinds of awareness platforms and programs you've seen before.
Yeah. So over the course of my years in security, I've done a lot of security awareness training programs, a lot in the last 6 months, even more so since I've been, working in this area more. But to me, the big thing that I really liked about ClickArmour is the engaging aspect to it. So you're not just having a bunch of screens thrown at you. You actually have a chance to identify and understand like a series of threats that are presented to you. You get to practice how you would respond in a very safe environment. And for me, that's really important for, I do like to rely on my gut, as I said earlier in the, in the
Yeah, yeah,
discussion, but I really like to have those practical tools, the ability to really practice what I think is the right answer and understanding, where I need to perform. So that part of the ClickArmour being so engaging and not just being a, throw information at me, at me, at me.
yeah.
To me, that's really, really important. And what I did learn from the Security Awareness Challenge, I will say, nuances are extremely important. And that's
Hmm.
true in real life, right? You really have to look at the nuances of the email, like we were doing earlier at the beginning
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
and looking, hovering over is one thing, or looking at the spelling, looking at the tone, putting that whole picture together is really important. And that's what I like about the training with ClickArmour as well, is it does bring everything together more wholesomely.
That's great. Well, thanks a lot for that feedback.
Yeah.
It's appreciated. Um, any last thoughts for managers looking to, try and improve their security these days? Is it technology they need, or processes, or the people, or a combination of both, or all
It
three?
probably is a combination of all those things, but in my mind, at the end of the day, it's about building security as a culture, right? It's
Mm,
it's not a checkbox thing. Compliance is one thing, and you do need to have your compliance. But at the end of the day, when a person is being tested by the attacker, it's not the compliance learners that are going to, or the compliance people that are going to do really well with it. It's going to be the people who engage to try and understand, again, the nuances, what the screen is telling you, what the phone call is telling you. It's really going to be about engaging and developing that security as a culture, that in an organization, that's what's going to make the difference.
awesome. That's great. Great insights, Nora, from your
Okay.
decades of experience in security awareness. Well, security and software, when we both worked as product
That's right.
managers at
Yeah.
Entrust. So, yeah, we've gone different directions, but great to be able to still connect with you and share thoughts. And I think really valuable for people watching and listening today. So, thank you
Well,
very much for joining us.
and thank you, Scott, for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts on this.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. And we'll talk to you next time.